Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 270 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where I have heard strange words and see new perils far off.
Alan, I told you last time, you need to stop leaving that old ham radio on while you sleep. It's not good for you. Folks, please pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I am Don Marshall, the obscure lord. I had to make an old guy joke to start.
Of course
right?
you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure that won't be your only one.
Oh, no, I've got a few written in here. I am Don Marshall, the obscure Lord of the Rings fact guy, and I am here with the man of the West, who looks as if in one night many years had fallen on his head, Alan Sisto.
Grim, gray-hued, and weary. I get it already, Don. Thanks. Folks, tonight Aragorn is going to make a huge decision in the second part of The Passing of the Grey Company, the second chapter in The Return of the King.
You mean he's finally going to reject Éomer?
No, that's next week.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, folks, some of you are hearing this show for the first time, and to you, we bid a very warm welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading, talking, and often joking about Alan's age, our way through Middle-earth, a few pages at a time.
It doesn't stop. We take a deep dive into the lore. We explore how the story came to be. We talk about our favorite themes and a whole lot more.
But, as you can already tell, it's a lighthearted and fun way we're doing this. Think of it like friends chatting at a pub.
If you were old enough to go to a pub. See, I'm just going to have to turn these things around, my friend.
It's a two-way street, and I'm ready for it. Let's drive. All right. Well, we are very glad you have joined us.
We are as well, and I hope you'll be glad you joined as well. But before we get to tonight's chapter discussion, it's time to welcome back my old co-host, Sean Marchese, for fan favorite Philology Faire. Sean, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, I still have that as my ringtone for starters, which means that every time Alan has been calling me for the last few weeks, it's that. So,
So even when you don't answer, I at least know you're thinking about the show.
Absolutely. Well, I do have a really cool one for everybody tonight. Once in this chapter and twice in the next chapter, we see a really interesting word used in reference to the muster of Rohan, and that's weapon take. Now, from context, the way it's used in the chapter, it's pretty obviously some sort of a meeting of the fighting men at a particular place and time.
Right.
And that seems like a reasonable meaning for a word like weapon take. It kind of sounds like, oh, well, that must be like the gathering where the soldiers take up their weapons. Or
That's
something like
what
that.
I'm thinking. It seems painfully obvious to me, sir.
It does, and yet that would be a bit misleading. Because
of course it would.
While that is the general sense in which Tolkien uses it, interestingly enough, the history of this word is a lot more complex than that simple explanation would suggest. Now, the modern meaning of the word weapon take, spelled a little bit differently, but basically the same word, is something our British listeners may know better than we do. It's a historic name for an administrative subdivision in northern English counties, particularly those that were once part of the Danelaw, or were under Norse influence in the Anglo-Saxon period. So if you're looking at counties like Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, all the shires. Well, okay, maybe not all the shires or shires, but, those ones in that sort of northern and eastern area of Britain, the Danelaw, which was the area that was under Norse influence for a period during the Anglo-Saxon period. And so understandably had a little bit different culture and in some cases slightly different language than other parts of Britain.
That's right. Well, it was the equivalent of the 100 in other parts of England, for those who are familiar with that term from Anglo-Saxon government. That's a subdivision of a shire or county. Now, nobody's quite sure why the subdivisions of shires were called 100, but it's believed to either have referred to an area of 100 hides, that is 100 plots of land big enough for a peasant household, or possibly an area supporting 100 men-at-arms.
So, of course, we've got all these administrative divisions of ancient England that nobody really knows why they're called what they're called. But the weapon take was something similar to that. Now, as you might expect, because it was used in the Danelaw counties, the word actually did come from Old Norse. The Old Norse form was something like vapnatak.
Oh, that sounds like an Old Norse word.
Doesn't it, though? I know.
Vapnatak.
That was vapen, which is weapon, plus taka, which is take.
I think we should start a new podcast. Vapnatak. We talk all your vapnas.
Leave your vapnas here. We will vapnatak. We will talk your vapnas. Leave your vapnas here.
All right.
No open carry of vapnas.
That's right. Leave them here at the door. We got them.
So Apparently, again, because these are just ancient words that have not totally been parsed out, but apparently the relationship to local government in Old Norse had something to do with the people of the community like brandishing or taking out their weapons to show their support for a measure being proposed.
Of course it did. I mean, that just sounds so Old Norse.
It sounds Viking, doesn't it? Like, I just imagine a proposal being put forth and a whole bunch of Norsemen like raising their swords and axes to vote yes for it, which would have to be a great way to convince anybody who's on the fence or maybe leaning towards a no. You'd change your mind pretty quickly once all the weapons come out.
You got my sword.
Yes. Yeah. Did you say no? I'm like, no. I'm yeah. I'm definitely a yeah.
I'm yes on 17.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, Ring of Words gives us a little more information that helps us understand the original meaning in Old Norse. Ring of Words tells us the corresponding word in Icelandic, which is very closely related to Old Norse, was used to mean, among other things, the taking up once more of weapons which had been laid aside by those attending the Althing, the Icelandic parliament.
Okay, so they put their weapons down first.
Right.
And then they go to get them while they're still in the parliamentary proceeding.
That would make for interesting legal battles.
I'll vote however you want me to, Ragnar. Just put the axe away, please.
Please. Put your axe back at the door. We're all good. Oh my goodness. Wow.
Vikings. Well,
you said that with such dismissive attitude. I love it.
I love the Vikings, man.
I know, I do too. Like, Vikings.
Oh, Viking.
Never change.
God, I feel like there should be a little bit of a Pooh thing there, you know? Oh, Vikings.
Ooh, we get Pooh back. Yay.
Anyway, Ring of Words cites this word weapon take as an example of Tolkien playing on a mismatch between a word's obvious form and its established meaning. They say the Old English form weapon tech contains weapon and take, though these elements are no longer present in the Old English meaning of the word, which is this administrative division we're talking about.
Right.
And so, as well as giving it a new meaning, Tolkien also gives it the modern spelling weapon take. A little further down in that chapter, they say, one of Tolkien's imaginative responses to old or obsolete words was to ask himself, how would this word look if it had survived to the present day, and what might it now mean? He could craft a missing modern English word from the ancient word, which could have been its ancestor.
Oh, because of course he could. Yeah.
Of course he could, because he's Tolkien.
That's one of the things I do in my spare time. I'm constantly wondering how an ancient word would look if it had survived to the present day and what it might now mean. Actually, I've never thought that before, which is why I host a podcast and don't create languages and worlds. Yeah.
So I don't create languages and worlds, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about what ancient words might look like.
You do,
now.
actually, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I'm like, you know, the meme with like the man and the woman in bed, and like the woman is like, oh, he's probably thinking of other women.
Right.
And the guy's like thinking of something completely esoteric.
Totally obscure. Right. I'm like thinking of like the F1 standings or.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm there thinking about ancient word origins and what they might look like now.
I love that, Sean. I love that. That's why this worked so well.
It's
man. All right.
It's kind of a problem. Anyway.
You say that, but I think it might be a credit to you. We'll see. Ring of Words also says the route by which this word came in English to mean an administrative region rather than an event can only be guessed at. The OED entry offers some ideas. Tolkien decided to take the word at face value and thereby assign to it, or rather to the respelt form weapon take, an obvious meaning, which he needed for his narrative. I think that's very interesting stuff. Now, Sean, did you manage, though, to dig up any of those ideas that the Ring of Words tells us the OED offered as to how the word got its meaning?
I did.
Color me shocked.
Well, you know, I spent a little time putting this together. The OED actually does note that, strangely, in Old English, there is no trace of the senses that we find in Old Norse. You know, none of this like really explicit, like, yes, it refers to a particular kind of parliamentary proceeding like that. The OED actually suggests it is noteworthy that weapon takes, like hundreds, often receive their names from some natural or artificial object. For example, a barrow or a tree, which afforded a suitable rallying place for open-air meetings. Assuming that in England, weapon take originally meant the act of signifying assent at a public assembly, again, the taking out your sword to just vote yes thing, It seems not improbable that the men of the district whose place of meeting was, for example, at Osgod's Cross, might be said to belong to the wapentake of Osgod's Cross, which would later become Osgold Cross. The use of the word to denote a territorial division would thus be sufficiently accounted for.
I suppose so.
That's sounds good to me, and that's really all we've got on it. But
wow.
I got to say, what I love about this word so much is just this idea of Tolkien trying to restore it to a more obvious meaning. Like, well, no, this is what this word should mean.
Right.
Let's go ahead and change it to mean
it
that.
may mean an administrative area now, but clearly it had its origins in the idea of taking up weapons, right?
Exactly. And there is an assembly aspect to what's going on here.
Oh,
with
absolutely,
the Rohan, obviously, right? So,
yeah,
I love it. And so he's kind of restored it to this ancient meaning and basically invented a new word in the process. Not that any of us are going to be using it on a crowded bus or anything, but it's still a cool word.
I don't know. I might find a way.
I don't know. Probably don't want to use the word weapon take on any kind of
No, that's true.
Transport.
No public transport at all. That's fair point. Fair point.
Yeah.
100%. Well, thank you for that, Sean. And thank you again for stopping by the Common Room once more. I'm so glad that we have you coming another 6 times this season. It's going to be great.
It's been so fun, and I'm so looking forward to coming back.
Oh, man, it's going to be great. I mean, look, Don Marshall has been as much fun as the Tolkien professor and Sean Gunner have been, but you know, Sean, you're always welcome here at the Pony.
Thank you, my friend.
Well, it is always great to have Sean back for a bit. If nothing else, he doesn't insult me about my age quite as often. We're looking forward to more Philology Fairs with him.
I'm going to have Sean on here one day with the 3 of us, and we're going to make some old person jokes. Question, Philology Fairs, is that like the Renaissance Fair, but for language nerds?
That's correct. Absolutely. A lot shorter, though. 10 minutes rather than for several days.
Oh,
and no costumes.
Oh, well, where's the fun in that?
Well, I don't know. You could wear a costume if you wanted to a Philology Fair. It'd be fine with me.
Would you like me to go grab my my lightsabers and my sword of Elendil?
If you would feel comfortable doing that, go right ahead. It's too late, though. The Philology Fair is over.
Ah, darn. Plus, it's an audio podcast, so you kind of lose some of the visuals.
Yeah, anyway. You kind of do. All right. For now, though, Don, let's go ahead and get started with the chapter. Will you take our first reading tonight? We're going to pick up exactly where we left off last week.
Let's do it. They talked then together as they ate, until presently Éomer spoke. It is near the hour that we set for our going, lord, he said. Shall I bid men sound the horns? But where is Aragorn? His place is empty, and he has not eaten. We will make ready to ride, said Théoden, but let word be sent to the Lord Aragorn that the hour is nigh. The king with his guard and Merry at his side passed down from the gate of the burg where the riders were assembling on the green. Many were already mounted. It would be a great company, for the king was leaving only a small garrison in the burg, and all who could be spared were riding to the wapentake at Edoras. 1,000 spears had indeed already ridden away at night, but still there would be some 500 more to go with the king, for the most part men of the fields and dales of Westfold. A little apart the rangers sat, silent and in ordered company, armed with spear and bow and sword. They were clad in cloaks of dark grey, and their hoods were cast now over helm and head. Their horses were strong and of proud bearing, but rough-haired, and one stood there without a rider, Aragorn's own horse that they had brought from the north. Rohirrim was his name. There was no gleam of stone or gold, nor any fair thing in all their gear and harness, nor did their riders bear any badge or token, save only that each cloak was pinned upon the left shoulder by a brooch of silver shaped like a rayed star.
And I'm just going to say, good job on remembering that it's brooch, because I cannot tell you how many times I pronounced that stupid word as brooch.
For years, man.
Man, Sean used to have to fix that all the time. Alan, it's brooch. Oh, dang it, I did it again. Almost as bad as Taniquetle. All right. Don't remind me, right?
Yeah, no.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of that section here. Picking up where we left off last week, Merry and Théoden are enjoying a little conversation while they eat.
Meanwhile, Éomer is reminding him that it is, time to go.
Time's ticking.
Of course, but then asks where his best bro, Aragorn, is, why he's not there. Théoden is like, yeah, okay, I concur, but let's make sure Aragorn knows. Let's send word, and then we gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. It's time to roll. Théoden, Merry, and the King's Guard, well, they do end up heading down to where the riders are getting ready, and it's a pretty big group. We've got 500 men, mostly from the Westfold, that are going to go with the king. That's a big, sizable company, but 1,000 had already left.
Yeah, and they're not sending a kind of tithe of their strength, if you will.
Right.
They're basically just leaving a small garrison behind. Compare that to like the southern fiefs of Gondor that we saw in the last chapter.
Exactly. I mean, I think that was literally the phrase. I don't remember now whether it was Baragond or Burgil that said that they are sending but a tithe of their strength. And it's because they were having to keep most of their forces back in order to defend against the Corsairs of Umbar.
Mm-hmm.
So as they get down there, the Rangers are there as well. They're set apart, and we get a really interesting detailed description of them. And I want to take a little bit of time to go through that. First, they're extremely well armed. Every one of them has a sword, a spear, and a bow. These are men of tremendous martial talent. They clearly have everything they need for melee, for relatively close range, maybe throwing that spear from 10 meters away, but also a bow for long range. They are kitted out, aren't they?
They are, and this is kind of where I go back to my sort of World War I comparison, like I did last time.
Special operations, right? Yeah,
the British Special Forces. Yeah, when World War I first started, there were all these very old, grizzled men that hadn't really fought in a while, but they were shoemakers or cobblers or bakers that had left their past behind, and then all of a sudden, all right, time to go, grab everything.
Yeah,
and these kind of harken back to these same kinds of people.
That's pretty amazing stuff. And of course, they're armored as well, as one would expect. I like this, though. They have the hooded cloaks over that armor. So even that is sort of understated,
Yeah.
Again, tying back into that special operations thing. I don't think I can stop imagining that now, just seeing these guys in that sort of framework. It's neat.
You'll find my World War I obsession has very little to do with the actual bloodshed and more the thing and then not the battle tactics or anything, but rather the people that were involved.
Oh yeah,
because it was such a fascinating time to watch these people. But it's not just the people, because of course World War I also filled with horses, and these horses are described in a very similar sort of fashion to those of the Rohirrim. They're strong and they're proud. They say rough-haired. I'll be honest, I'm not like a horse person at all. I'm
not either. I looked that up. The first thing I saw when I saw, Google rough-haired was like, oh, they're not taking care of, they're poorly maintained, they're in bad health. I'm like, no, hold on. Rangers would never do that. Let me reach out to our resident equine expert, Debbie B. She's been somebody we've relied on often to talk about horse details. She said this is almost certainly due to travel and the season, right? This is spring, and so they're going to be shedding those winter coats, but not yet. They're maybe in the process of that. The Rangers, of course, wouldn't have time to do extensive grooming on the road, so they wouldn't be sleek and shiny. They'll be starting to shed out. She also said, though, it is possible that they're a breed maybe similar to Icelandic horses that get really shaggy in the winter before they get sleek and shiny in the summer. We don't know.
Well, now I just want to see Aragorn riding a really shaggy horse.
I know. Wouldn't that be cool?
Come on, Peter Jackson. Let's give us that visual instead.
Well, they don't even give him Rohirrim in the movies, do they? They give him one of the Rohirric horses.
Look, they cut Tom Bombadil, they cut Glorfindel. There's no way.
Yeah, Rohirrim's not going to get any chance on this one. Not a chance.
No. I am, though, glad we do get to see Rohirrim, because we have a little bit of word nerdery here.
Indeed.
The word for horse, which I think I'm pronouncing, it's Roch. It's roh.
Yes.
Like the roh. And then, of course, very much like Rohan.
Rohirrim, Rohan. Yeah. Right, exactly.
And then Heron, which is lady.
Yeah. Now, how do we know that last bit, that Heron is lady? Well, it's the appendix to the Silmarillion, and we're told that Rohirrim means horse of the lady, so that's how we know what Heron means. But why is Aragorn's horse called the horse of the lady? Well, that same appendix tells us something that we don't read in The Lord of the Rings. Arwen gave him this horse. It was a gift from her.
I'm not shocked by that detail at all. That seems very much like a gift. And wouldn't it just be amazing if Arwen sends him a horse if he maybe falls off a giant cliff?
That would be handy. Yeah, if I'm at the bottom of a cliff, I need a little something. Can you send me a horse?
I'm sure Peter Jackson looked at that and went, I can work with this.
I'm sure he did.
And just a reminder of sort of how understated they look. Again, drawing my comparison to these British Special Forces. No gleam, no fair things, no badge, no token, just a silver brooch shaped like a raid star. Because remember, Alan, I think this was back in, was it episode 266, possibly 267 in a mailbag or something? You talked about Thorongil.
Oh, yeah.
And how he got that name.
Right. That's Aragorn, of course, when he was undercover in Rohan and in Minas Tirith. Appendix A tells us that he was called the Eagle of the Star. That's what Thorongil means. For he was swift and keen-eyed and wore a silver star upon his cloak. So that's clearly this silver star that we see, the Rage Star. Now, this brooch does actually have a name, but we only see that name in one place. It's called the Star of the Dunedain. And we get that name from the Tale of Years when we read that in Shire Reckoning 1436, which is 4th Age 15, King Elessar rides north, comes to the Brandywine Bridge, and there greets his friends. He gives the Star of the Dunedain to Master Samwise. What an honor that is, huh?
That is a kingly gift indeed.
Absolutely. Hey, before we take a quick break, I just completely glossed this over, and I hate doing that because you know how much I love alliteration. I want to go back real briefly to that line talking about the Rangers. They were clad in cloaks of dark gray, and their hoods were cast now over helm and head. I love that. Clad, cloaks, cast, hoods, helm, head. It's not verse, right? So it doesn't jump out at you when you're scanning the text unless you read it out loud. Another one of these reasons why I always suggest to our listeners, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't read this out loud.
Yeah.
So much of Tolkien's lyrical ability, so much of his poetic tendencies come out even in the prose, and it's just fantastic when you get little moments like this.
I have a small confession to make. When I was first reading the books in high school or college, it was to my great shame now that I admit I skipped Bilbo's poem in Rivendell. You too?
Me too. Absolutely, me too. Yeah. Sean and I have talked about this before because he's a big poetry guy in the first place, and I admitted the first probably 2 or 3 read-throughs, I might read 1 or 2 stanzas of some of the longer ones. I might skip them. I honestly skip the poetry a lot.
Yeah.
And it's only been maybe in the last 10 years where I've dived in and really explored it and enjoyed it more and looked at the process of how it came to be. And as I've done that, I've come to appreciate it even more, especially the alliterative verse. I mean, it's cool to get the rhyming stuff in there, but I love the alliterative verse. I have come to just absolutely adore that format. It's great stuff. So I'll call it out every time we see it.
It's brilliant. The first time I heard Earendil was a mariner that tarried in Alvernian.
The rhythm to that is just so beautiful, and it just keeps going.
The first time I heard that was not from the audiobook, which I've listened to, the Robert Inglis ones, which I absolutely love. It was a friend of mine on TikTok made a song about it.
Oh, no way.
And he was playing the guitar, and I was like, that's... and so
it all came together.
Like, yeah. And so it all fit very nicely.
You know, that is one thing I really enjoy about the Rob Inglis book is that he sings these things. You know, he puts the poems to song. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know that that's a musical choice I would have made, but it at least gets the flavor across a little bit better,
it does.
I think, by making it into a musical piece.
Having Robert Inglis be Treebeard and saying the words Lorlindorm, I'm like,
Lorlindorm. I love that.
My God, it was. I give him props for that. He did it with his full chest.
Great stuff. All right, well, we'll pick this right back up after the break. Well, now, before we get back to the text and the stars of the Dunedain, or the all-stars of the Dunedain, as the case may be, we want to make sure you know that even after you've listened to this episode, there is a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
The Prancing Pony Podcast has a pretty amazing listener community. I'm fortunate enough to be among them, and they are always coming up with some really great questions and discussions across all of the social media spaces. You can check out the Common Room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
Now on Facebook, just look for The Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page to get our news, but be sure to join the group for some great discussions.
And if you'd prefer Reddit, you can find us on r/PrancingPonyPod, and on Twitter and Instagram, we are simply Prancing Pony Pod, provided that Twitter is still a website when this episode comes out.
Oh no, you may be speaking more prophetically than you'd like. You might have the gift of foresight like Aragorn does.
I'm going to tell you what I have seen, though. And I'm not looking into any Palantir here. I'm just reading the writing on the walls, or the internet, I should say.
That's fair. Folks, do please be sure to check out the Rings of Power Wrap-Up. Now, that's my other podcast, a new one with Sarah Brown and James Tauber, where we discuss, analyze, and speculate all about Amazon's television adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth.
Alan, James, and Sarah take a deep dive into the lore behind the show, or perhaps some of the lore that should be behind the show.
Fair.
We may see in other episodes. Talk about the themes and the characters, and interview folks involved in the show.
That's right.
So look for the Rings of Power Wrap-Up and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And also check out Rings Wrap-Up on social media for more.
That's right. Now, last week, Don, I surprised you, not by being merely a competent co-host, but by telling you that Sean and I are writing a book.
Competent is a bit of a stretch, and I assumed that Sean wrote most of it, but that is not to say I am actually looking forward to this book that is releasing next July. Is that correct? Why
Yes,
We
it is.
Love Middle-earth. It is going to be, as far as I'm concerned, a very great resource for folks who are maybe new to the Tolkien fandom, as well as some maybe older veterans that need a refresher on the new TikTok landscape on places like TikTok.
I see, Don. You still want that signed copy, right? You're not referring to me as an older veteran, I hope?
No, that was
of course
entirely Sean, who is not here to defend himself in any way possible.
All right. Well, folks, with the recent release of the Amazon show, we know that a brand new group of viewers is going to be looking to learn more about the rich world of Middle-earth fandom. So Sean and I are writing what we hope will be a guidebook for those folks diving into Middle-earth for the first time. But it's also going to be for longtime Legendarium readers looking for more information on a specific aspect of Tolkien's works and on the fandom. And that's what's new about all this, actually diving into the Tolkien fandom itself. The book is going to be a collection of short chapters, each serving as an introduction to a different book, a different topic of study, or a different fan interest. And the idea is to draw readers deeper into Middle-earth as they read along with us.
Now, last week, Alan, you actually let me take a look at the table of contents as well as the first chapter, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good read, I think. And
I hope so.
I mean,
your ringing endorsement isn't exactly ringing.
Well, I haven't actually read the full thing yet, and I like to judge something on its merits. But you know what? You seem like a decent enough guy. I'm sure it'll be great. Because you're not just talking about the books as we do here, right? There are adaptation, the books about Tolkien, the art, the games, the online communities, whether they're on, Reddit or Twitter or TikTok, maybe the fan gatherings.
That's right. All the cons.
Of course, so much fun. All
the
of
moots.
the cons, the languages, and there's so much to the Tolkien
There really
community.
is.
Way more.
There absolutely is. And we're going to try to make the book mirror the experience of listening to the podcast as much as it's possible to do in a book. There will be plenty of asides and digressions, commentary in each of our two voices, and plenty of pop culture references and dad jokes. Pre-orders are available now, folks, so please check out our socials and our website for more information. Now, if you do enjoy the show, please, one more thing, consider supporting us by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast. When you do, you get a lot. You get an active Discord community that includes live episode recordings, postscripts, episodes without digital ads, and a lot more.
Like free merch and live Discord hangouts. Really like that stuff. But you can also become a part of our Questions After Nightfall episodes, or even join us as a guest in the North Wing. So please go to patreon.com/prancingponypod to show your support and join the Fellowship of the Podcast.
Now, you can also help us out by giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and a rating on Spotify. And please recommend us to your friends.
And your enemies.
Well, sure. Why not? They deserve a good podcast, right?
I mean, yeah,
Might as well. If your enemies are even listening to your recommendations, of course.
I feel like there's a bridge to be crossed here, a divide to be brought together. Let's do our best.
Well, we can serve that role. Yeah, I think so.
Contact your old high school bully. Say, hey, think you'll really like this. Actually, don't do that. That's terrible advice. Recommend this to your therapist. And if you don't have a therapist, get one.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Oh, man.
Shall we maybe get back into the story, Alan? Yeah.
Yes, we probably
should.
And I'll pick up exactly where you left off. The king mounted his horse, Snowmane, and Merry sat beside him on his pony. Stibba was his name. Presently, Éomer came out from the gate, and with him was Aragorn, and Halbarad bearing the great staff close furled in black, and two tall men, neither young nor old. So much alike were they, the sons of Elrond, that few could tell them apart, dark-haired, gray-eyed, and their faces elven fair, clad alike in bright mail beneath cloaks of silver gray. Behind them walked Legolas and Gimli, but Merry had eyes only for Aragorn, so startling was the change that he saw in him, as if in one night many years had fallen on his head. Grim was his face, gray-hued and weary. "I am troubled in mind, Lord," he said, standing by the king's horse. "I have heard strange words, and I see new perils far off. I have labored long in thought, and now I fear that I must change my purpose. Tell me, Théoden, you ride now to Dunharrow. How long will it be ere you come there?" "It is now a full hour past noon," said Éomer. "Before the night of the third day from now we should come to the hold. The moon will then be 2 nights past his full, and the muster that the king commanded will be held the day after. More speed we cannot make if the strength of Rohan is to be gathered." Aragorn was silent for a moment. 3 days, he murmured, "and the muster of Rohan will only be begun. But I see that it cannot now be hastened." He looked up, and it seemed that he had made some decision. His face was less troubled. "Then by your leave, Lord, I must take new counsel for myself and my kindred. We must ride our own road, and no longer in secret. For me, the time of stealth has passed. I will ride east by the swiftest way, and I will take the paths of the dead."
Dun,
Bum,
dun,
bum.
dun.
I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
heavy drop right there.
Yeah. And it harkens back to, what we were saying last episode about how Théoden was like, wow, 30 different versions of Aragorn. How lucky
Seriously.
are we? And now all of a sudden Aragorn's like, by the way, I'm leaving with all of them. Sorry. We're gone. We're out.
Théoden, man, that's bad news. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
and you can see when we get to the next section that he's torn between worrying about his new friend going off and getting himself killed in the paths of the dead, and more importantly, taking 30 other warriors with him.
Yeah. If I may, Alan, just to kind of give readers how scared Théoden is at this point, the next line I'm going to read when I start the next one is, "The paths of the dead," said Théoden, "and trembled."
Trembled. Yeah.
Terrified. Like, you read that and I'm like, I didn't see Bernard Hill shake in fear, but I think if they had included any point in that, like any visual representation of fear, like that horse and the rider speech, sure, but like, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, I know.
We'll
For a man like that to be afraid, but we'll talk about that after your next reading. Let's go back to the beginning of this one, huh?
Yeah. Yes. Right. So Théoden gets his own horse, Snowmane, which I imagine you are going to talk about at length when we get to Pelennor Fields. Won't focus too much on that here. Meanwhile, Merry gets to sit on Stibba next to him. And Hammond and Skull point out that Stib, S-T-Y-B-B, is Old English meaning stump of a tree.
Yeah.
A fun fact there.
That is a fun one. So hopefully Stibba will grow up and get a different nickname. But for now, he's small enough for Merry. Poor guy. So Éomer has found Aragorn, it would seem, and not just Aragorn, right? Aragorn, Halbarad, Elladan and Elrohir, Gimli and Legolas all come through the gate. And Halbarad is holding that big staff that we talked about last episode, all wrapped up in black cloth.
And Elladan and Elrohir are described as so much alike, few could tell them apart. They've got the very dark hair, the gray eyes, the elven fair faces, the sort of silver gray cloaks behind some very bright mail, which honestly, I know
they're going to stand out a little from the rest of the Rangers, aren't they?
The elves always need to stand out.
They have some
written
style
in their DNA. Eru was like, you're going to have some sass.
Speaking of DNA, clearly twins run in the family here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Elrond and Elros, and then Elrond himself has twins. That's something. I always thought they skipped generations.
I don't know anything about Tolkien's mythology of is that genealogy? What is even the right, ancestry? What's anyway.
I don't know either.
All right.
That could be a whole sidebar. Maybe we'll explore that in the P5s. I don't know. Probably not.
I'm ready for it.
We'll see. So as Aragorn approaches Théoden, we get a perspective from Merry, don't we? We get these direct observations of Aragorn. The thing that Merry notices is this startling change, and please no old man jokes, many years suddenly on Aragorn, right? He's grim-faced, he's weary, he's gray. It's as though years have gone by in just that single night. Now, as we'll see in just a little bit in tonight's episode, this is the result of battling Sauron in the Palantir. No wonder.
It is. And you just kind of think back to, like, have you ever seen like a war veteran be asked to talk about their experience and they just, something changes in their eyes and their face? And I imagine that, like, Aragorn looks very similar to this. Like, he's already struggled. He's already fought, because he's speaking with Théoden about this sort of troubled mind. He's hearing these strange words, which of course we know as the messages from Elrond and Arwen. But then of course he sees these new perils far off and
through the Palantir, right?
Through the Palantir. And then, this is the sort of culmination of all of the, even in just the last few pages, all of the things that he has been wrestling with through the last day or so.
And it's interesting because we know from watching Denethor that premature aging is very much one of the signs of Palantir usage. I mean, that's something that directly contributed to Denethor's, early aging. And to see it here happening to Aragorn is really distressing. But I think a lot of it is, okay, I said it was because of his battling Sauron, and it is, but it's also because he's still carrying the burden of making a decision. So we will see an improvement a little bit, huh?
Yeah, and thank God we do.
Yeah, and he's also labored long in thought, like I was just talking about, right? He's pulled an all-nighter with Halbarad, and now he thinks he might have to change his plans, but, he still hasn't landed there yet. So he asks for some information that will help him decide. He asks when Théoden expects to get to Dunharrow for the muster. Éomer answers for the king, and he says, by the night of the third day from now, which would be March 9th, because this is still March 6th.
Right, which means the muster would then take place the next day, March 10th. Any faster, though, and Rohan would not have a strong enough force.
Right, exactly. You have to kind of balance the difference between speed and force. I mean, you find that sweet spot. Yeah, if you wait an extra day, maybe you get 5% more, but if you go a day early, you're maybe 30% shy. That's not going to work. So you find that sweet spot. A quick note on this bit, by the way, about the moon will then be 2 nights past his full. In editions before 2005, and sadly this includes my Mariner paperback, Hammond and Skull tell us that this read 1 night past his full and was, of course, an error. Now, in Journeys of Frodo by Barbara Strachey, this was another one of the map books, it's not really a competition with the Atlas of Middle-earth, but it is because it's a book of maps, but it's totally different because Barbara's not a professional cartographer, and she just wanted to do this as a labor of love, and it's really pretty fantastic. I think some of the maps she doesn't do as many of them, and that's the thing, but they're very nicely detailed. However, this has nothing to do with any of her maps. This actually has to do with her forward. She points out this problem in her forward, saying, the next full moon is seen by Frodo and Sam at Henneth noon on 7th March. There is a slight difficulty here, as Éomer states on 6th March, that the riders would reach Dunharrow in 3 days, and that night, the 9th of March, the moon would be 1 day past full, thus putting the full moon on 8th, not 7th. So she caught that and noticed that error. Hammond and Skull follow this up with an acknowledgement that correcting 1 night past his full to 2 nights fits with the chronologies put together by Christopher Tolkien in The War of the Ring, and so, voila, that change is made.
This is how you know that Tolkien is so prolific that we are now finding out years later that a phase of the moon on one sentence is being discussed in such a depth that you and I are mentioning it from a book, not just one book. It's several books.
Yeah, that's true. Journeys of Frodo, The War of the Ring, and Hammond and Skull Reader's Companion. Yeah.
Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. This is what I love about the Tolkien,
Tolkien studies, Tolkien fandom, Tolkien academia, just diving in and getting everything right. It's fantastic.
Speaking of getting things right, Aragorn processing what is going to be right, processing the news, taking
kind of talking to himself a little bit.
Yeah. Trying to sort of reach a decision. Is that how you talk to yourself, Alan? Yeah.
No comment.
It's an age thing, isn't it? Anyway,
man,
it's all right. I'm sure I'll get there one day.
Not if you keep this up, man.
It's been nice being on the podcast.
I'll put a stop to your aging right now. I brought you into this podcast. I can take you out.
I see what you're doing there. So Aragorn is processing this news, and he says that he and the Grey Company have to take a different road.
Indeed. MapQuest is telling him he has to turn left. Théoden's going to turn right, and they're going to hopefully still get to the same place. I don't know.
I
map quests.
want one cell phone in Middle Earth. Just give me a completely rewritten. Just
Well, that cell
having
phone's not going to do any good if there aren't any GPS satellites floating around the Earth. I mean, really. One cell phone and 30 GPS positioning satellites.
Let me have my moment, Alan. Let me
Okay.
have this. Let me
I'm
have
letting
this. In another world with a smartphone.
In a world where Middle Earth has smartphones and cell towers and GPS satellites.
Oh my God. Did you hear? He's with Éowyn now. Ugh.
I don't even want to follow anybody's Instagram in Middle Earth. But that actually might be something we have to take and run with at some point. We'll talk about that project later.
We absolutely will. Yes, we'll talk.
All right. So for Aragorn, no more secrecy and stealth, right? That is out the window. Speed is what matters now. Speed is of the essence. And because of that, he tells Théoden he's going to take the paths of the dead. And you already gave us a hint as to Théoden's reaction, and now we actually get to hear you read that section next up.
The paths of the dead? Said Théoden, and trembled. Why do you speak of them? Éomer turned and gazed at Aragorn, and it seemed to Merry that the faces of the riders that sat within hearing turned pale at the words. If there be in truth such paths, said Théoden, their gate is in Dunharrow, but no living man may pass it. Alas, Aragorn, my friend, said Éomer, I had hoped that we should ride to war together, but if you seek the paths of the dead, then our parting is come, and it is little likely that we shall ever meet again under the sun. That road I will take none the less, said Aragorn, but I say to you, Éomer, that in battle we may yet meet again, though all the hosts of Mordor should stand between. You will do as you will, my lord Aragorn, said Théoden. It is your doom, maybe, to tread strange paths that others dare not. This parting grieves me, and my strength is lessened by it, but now I must take the mountain roads and delay no longer. Farewell. Farewell, lord, said Aragorn. Ride unto great renown. Farewell, Merry. I leave you in good hands, better than we hoped when we hunted the orcs to Fangorn. Legolas and Gimli will still hunt with me, I hope, but we shall not forget you. Goodbye, said Merry. He could find no more to say. He felt very small, and he was puzzled and depressed by all of these gloomy words. More than ever, he missed the unquenchable cheerfulness of Pippin. The riders were ready, and their horses were fidgeting. He wished they would start and get it over. Now Théoden spoke to Éomer, and he lifted up his hand and cried aloud. And with that word, the riders set forth.
Oh, man.
Heavy stuff. Heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff. And a lot, really, to unpack in a relatively short section.
Tolkien has that a lot.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, Théoden is deeply troubled even by the mention of the name Paths of the Dead. He trembles saying it. And we see that Éomer and the writers that are able to hear this, they react similarly with their faces just totally going pale. They are spooked by even the concept of this place.
I've struggled in when we were sort of writing the notes for this to try and think of a place on our Earth that people, I mean, obviously there are dangerous, places you wouldn't want to go because of various, political, and the ramifications there, but a place that is so evil. And I would invite anybody here to sort of have a discussion on that in the subreddit or Twitter or Discord or wherever. A place so evil that just the name of it brings a sense of dread to even the strongest, because this is the king. The king is trembling. The king is troubled. And Éomer is essentially saying, like, all right, well, if you're going there, you're going to die. I had kind of hoped we had ride off to war together.
It's nice knowing you. Yeah.
But I'm never going to see you again if you go there. And Aragorn is, I love this about Tolkien, this nice little prophetic statement here. Yes. In battle we may yet meet again, though all the hosts of Mordor should stand between. Not to spoil anything. But
not to spoil anything, but of course that's precisely what happens in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, isn't it? I love, I'm just going to take a quick moment and do a sidebar on these things. I love these moments when people have visions of the future. And the first one that came back to me when I read this was back to Finrod's response to his sister Galadriel when she asked why he didn't have a wife, right? I mean, why haven't you settled down yet? Mom would want you to get married and have grandkids. No, The text says, "But foresight came upon Felagund as she spoke, and he said, An oath I too shall swear, and must be free to fulfill it, and go into darkness. Nor shall anything of my realm endure that a son should inherit." Wow. Yeah.
Heavy stuff.
Heavy.
All around. We also, though, correct me if I'm wrong, we have Huor telling Torgon, right?
Oh, I know. Yes. A much more positive one this time.
Thank God. Yeah.
Long term.
Finally, some levity. Yeah. "Though we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again, from you and from me a new star shall arise." I love that part.
I love that too. I mean, look, I'm going to die, right? I mean, he knows that. And of course he does. But a new star shall arise. And of course he's referencing Eärendil. And it's literally a new star.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Now, granted, this one that Aragorn has here, it's not quite as clear. He says we may yet meet again, and that does leave room for, well, death. But it definitely puts me in mind of those other moments. And those aren't really the only two, but those are the only two we're mentioning here.
Yeah. Théoden says, Aragorn, it's your call. And this is sort of, Aragorn saying, by your leave, right?
That's true. He did say that, didn't he? He said, by your leave, Théoden, I'm going to do this. Because he's underneath the king's authority at this point because he's not yet the king of Gondor.
No. And Théoden is pretty cool about it, acknowledging that Aragorn's, kind of in an unusual role, and he is going places that others, don't. It still makes him very sad to lose not only Aragorn, but also the strength of the Rangers.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about Aragorn with the reforged sword and 30 Rangers and 2 elf knights. Yeah, it's a pretty fantastic little force. But it's time to go. No more delay. So they bid each other farewell. I mean, they are straight to business here, I have to say.
Yeah.
And Aragorn has that great little line, "Ride unto great renown," which, of course, Théoden is going to do. And it's the first of a few farewells. Next up is Merry. And that one just broke my heart.
It really did. And it was really only in talking with you last time that I fully appreciated Merry here, because Aragorn recalls basically his hunt with Legolas and Gimli, finding Merry and Pippin after they had been kidnapped by the orcs, and then they're now in Fangorn. Legolas and Gimli are going with Aragorn.
Yeah.
And they're like, none of them, we're never going to forget you, right? It's just like, well, we found you. We're glad you're here.
Put you in safe hands, right? Yeah.
Goodbye. Because keep in mind, Merry has seen Aragorn for has it been 2 days or 3 days at this point? It's been.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it would have been when Aragorn and Théoden and the riders went to Isengard to do the parley with Saruman. That's when they found Merry and Pippin.
Yeah.
What, 3 days maybe? 2 days?
Well, I'll have to double
it's not
check
long.
that, but
We'll
it's
have to
not
look
long.
at the tale of years for that one.
Just imagine like, hey, hi, great to see you again. Remember that journey we had? Anyway, I'm going to go to the paths of the dead.
Yeah. I may not survive this.
And you mentioned it yourself. They're leaving him in good hands, especially Théoden, who is, now taken a liking to him. But we definitely get this really heartbreaking thing into Merry's feelings. And I can't help but think that maybe Tolkien is writing about, himself or others feeling that because he evokes such an emotion in that moment he really does of this parting.
Yeah, the part where we read about Merry feeling small, confused or puzzled, right? Saddened, depressed by these gloomy words. You really feel that as you read this. You understand the sorrow and, well, that confusion really, that like, wait, you just found what? But it leads to this lovely little bit about how much he misses Pippin's, and I love the phrase, unquenchable cheerfulness.
Love it.
And it so describes Pippin, doesn't it? I mean, that is Pippin to a T. It's a great way to describe him. Frankly, serves as a great little counter to fool of a toque. I'm not a fool. I'm just unquenchably cheerful. Love it.
We've had cheerfulness. What about unquenchable
cheerfulness? I love that. Oh, I don't think he knows about that, Pip. Oh, man.
What about happiness, joy?
Yeah.
Amazement. How many synonyms can I think of?
A fountain full of mirth, as we had with Gandalf before.
Exactly. But of course, in mentioning all of these happy things, as we saw in the last chapter, right? Pippin, not quite as cheerful as he once was.
No.
Meanwhile, Merry is now just sort of impatient. It's like, all right, yeah, let's get going. Also a mirror to Pippin in the last chapter.
That's true. That's right.
There's the point where he says, all the same, I wish it was over for good or ill. I am no warrior at all and dislike any thought of battle, but waiting on the edge of one that I can't escape is worst of all.
Wow. Yeah, that really is sort of the expanded edition of he wished they would start and get it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so great that, it's only in sort of reading this out loud with you that I realize how many times Tolkien references himself in such a way that you're not immediately drawn to it. But if you think about it for a second, you go, oh, yeah, there's kind of a foil there between the two.
Yeah, there really is.
So quick as a flash, to get it over with, the riders get going at Théoden's word and basically pass the dike down into the valley and then along into the foothills and boom. Gone.
Yeah, they are.
Out of view. Talking about getting it over with, the riders are just going quickly. They're going at Théoden's word. They ride past the dike, down the valley, along the foothills, out of view, and into the next portion, which, Alan, I think you're going to take.
That is indeed what I'm going to do. So Aragorn has watched them leave, and I'm going to pick up there. There go three that I love, and the smallest not the least, he said. He knows not to what end he rides. Yet if he knew, he still would go on. A little people, but of great worth are the Shire folk, said Halbarad. Little do they know of our long labour for the safe keeping of their borders, and yet I grudge it not. And now our fates are woven together, said Aragorn. And yet, at last, here we must part. Well, I must eat a little, and then we also must hasten away. Come, Legolas and Gimli, I must speak with you as I eat. Together they went back into the burg. Yet for some time Aragorn sat silent at the table in the hall, and the others waited for him to speak. Come, said Legolas at last. Speak and be comforted, and shake off the shadow. What has happened since we came back to this grim place in the grey morning? A struggle somewhat grimmer for my part than the Battle of the Hornburg, answered Aragorn. I have looked in the Stone of Orthanc, my friends. You have looked in that accursed stone of wizardry, exclaimed Gimli with fear and astonishment in his face. Did you say aught to him? Even Gandalf feared that encounter. You forget to whom you speak, said Aragorn sternly, and his eyes glinted. What do you fear that I should say to him? Did I not openly proclaim my title before the doors of Edoras? Nay, Gimli, he said in a softer voice, and the grimness left his face, and he looked like one who has labored in sleepless pain for many nights. Nay, my friends, I am the lawful master of the stone, and I had both the right and the strength to use it, or so I judged. The right cannot be doubted. The strength was enough. Barely. I love this scene. I love this scene. So let's dive in. All right.
Okay, yes, let's get into this. So Aragorn basically follows Théoden and the Rohirrim to the dike and watches them all ride off. He then turns to Halbarad. And is
not Halbrand.
Not Halbrand, no.
Despite my tendency to say that, yes.
Despite your best efforts, yeah. But then, in this very tender moment, we see speaking about his love and his care for Théoden, Éomer, and especially Merry. And that is, it's quite comforting, speaking of a little hobbit's courage.
Yeah. And it's a thought echoed by Halbarad, too. Small, but of great worth. And we get that reminder of the Ranger's watch over the Shire. I love that it's not begrudged. It's just a neat thing from Halbarad. And then Aragorn's interesting reminder. Our fate, the fate of the Dunedain, the fate of the men of Westernesse is tied to the hobbits.
I do quite like this part specifically because it is one of those moments, especially when I was watching the movies, that I thought, well, yeah, Boromir is kind of right. Give Gondor the ring. Let's see what a warfare can do. Meantime, Aragorn's chilling in the back like, I've literally been doing the exact same thing, but from the shadows, which is arguably a little bit harder. Right. Yeah. There's more subterfuge and betrayal and backstabbing and all of that stuff. And you just kind of get this sense that the Shire wouldn't exist without Aragorn and the rest of the Dunedain. And these 30 are partially responsible for all of that.
They absolutely are. Yeah.
Meantime, Aragorn's saying, it's time to go, but he wants to chat with Legolas and Gimli first. They head back into the fortress. And I love this part. Aragorn is quiet as he eats.
Come talk to me. I need to talk to you. And then he doesn't talk. I know.
Just sits there, just gloomily eating stew. Legolas is at first very patient, but then is like, all right, come on, let me help. What's
Spit it out, man,
bud? Yeah. And basically Legolas realizing and asking him what's changed since we got back this morning, because clearly something has changed.
Something has changed, right? And Aragorn tells him, look, what I did was grimmer than the Battle of the Hornburg. And let's be clear, that's pretty darn grim. That looked like the end of the world of men right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given the option, which would you prefer? Would you prefer to fight? Let's say you've got all of the skill of Aragorn. Fight for the entire night. In the Hornburg, or look in the Palantir. Like,
exactly. Look into a rock or face 10,000 orcs with like 500 men.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to look into the rock. Yeah. Not when you know who's on the other side, though, right? And that's when he tells him what he did that is grimmer, and that is looked into the Palantir.
I love Gimli's reaction here. Fear and astonishment. Like,
you done what?
You did what now? I'm sorry. What? And he basically asks if Aragorn said anything to, and he says him, doesn't name it, but it is Sauron, and mentions that. And I love this comparison right here, because Gimli brings up Gandalf saying, Gandalf was afraid of that, man. What are you gonna do?
That's wild. But Aragorn's response, as much as we like Gimli's reaction here, it's Aragorn's response to Gimli's reaction that is absolutely off the charts cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, Ed, I absolutely love it. And don't you know who I am?
Yeah. Have you not been paying attention?
Yeah. It's one of those moments of like, Gandalf's not that great. Yeah. Let me show you what I can do.
He's not the king. I am the king.
And the other moment of like, what did you think I was going to say to him?
Seriously?
Like, our battle plans? Like, hey, by the way, I'm taking the paths of the dead over there. Just
right. Yeah. I'm going to beat those Corsairs of Umbar a little bit. Yeah. So he mentions that he openly proclaimed who he is at Edoras, right? Let's take a look at that. And it's back in The King of the Golden Hall. First, it's actually Gandalf who mentions Aragorn to the guards at the gate. After he names himself and Shadowfax, Gandalf says, "And here beside me is Aragorn, son of Arathorn, heir of kings. And it is to Mundburg he goes." Of course, Mundburg being Minas Tirith.
And later, Aragorn is saying to and I know you love the amazing Hama.
Oh, right? Yes. We are president and co-president of the Hama fan club here at the PPP.
After this Hama door warden person tells him that he... it's Hama, it's fine.
Right.
But Hama basically says he has to put his sword aside.
Yeah.
And the passage here, "It is not clear to me that the will of Théoden, son of Thengel, even though he be lord of the Mark, should prevail over the will of Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elendil's heir of Gondor."
So Aragorn has clearly openly proclaimed who he is.
Oh yeah.
He's not being secretive about his identity. I have to say, as much as I love his response, right? Basically, don't you know who I am? It was his first edition response that was even better.
Oh.
So this was here until the second edition came out. Aragorn originally said, "What do you fear that I should say? That I had a rascal of a rebel dwarf here that I would gladly exchange for a serviceable orc?" I love that line.
That is amazing.
Oh, I first heard about that actually in a talk that Tom Shippey gave. It was the one where he's talking about from Tolkien's book to Jackson's script. And he's talking about the whole, adaptation process. It's a talk he gave many, many years ago, of course, actually adapted, I think, from an essay, or maybe the essay came from the talk on this whole process. And in it, he relates this story. And so I'm always hearing this line, not in Aragorn's voice, but in Tom Shippey's voice.
That is amazing. That's amazing.
That I had a rascal of a rebel dwarf here that I would gladly exchange for a serviceable orc. It's just, oh
man.
Tom, never changed. Love you.
No.
Yeah. So, in relation to this particular passage from the first edition, Hammond and Skull point to an unpublished letter to Eileen Elgar in 1963, in which she apparently had criticized Aragorn's sharp retort as published in the first edition. Tolkien's response to her was to point out that Gimli's response, his initial reaction, was silly and impertinent. And then he described Aragorn's reply as more grim humor than serious rebuke, which is kind of the feel I get from it.
Yeah, definitely get that feel, and definitely dialing back on the snark in that second edition.
Oh, yeah, he did. That's for sure. And not only did he soften that, but Aragorn softens a bit here as well. He looks a bit less grim, though he's still visibly exhausted. And he reminds him, I love this, kind of tenderly, my friends, right? I mean, he's just given Gimli the riot act, especially in the first edition.
Yep.
But here he says, my friends. And he reminds them that he is the one who is lawfully entitled to the stone.
Yeah, so he basically has the right, he thought, and as we now know, the strength to use it. And the right was certainly in place. The strength, though, not quite as sufficient as maybe he originally intended.
Yeah, just enough, but just enough. Yeah. So diving into this a bit deeper, we're going to go back to the letters again, and this time a published draft of the letter to Eileen Elgar. This is published as letter number 246. Now here, Tolkien's answering a question about Frodo, Sauron, and the ring, and it's a great discussion, and you definitely should read it. But when it comes to the part that's relevant to this discussion, he says in an aside, in the contest with the Palantir, Aragorn was the rightful owner. Then separately, he addresses the strength question just a bit. He says about that contest, it took place at a distance, and in a tale which allows the incarnation of great spirits in a physical and destructible form, their power must be far greater when actually present. So that suggests, of course, that it's less than when he's not actually present.
Right.
And of course, he had said just a moment earlier that even Aragorn could not have been able to keep the ring from Sauron if he were in his actual presence. So, yeah.
It's wild to even think about that. Like, who among these characters has the strength to actually destroy the ring? And we get this really interesting part in Unfinished Tales. In the section about the Palantir, we read, these stones were an inalienable gift to Elendil and his heirs, to whom alone they belonged by right. And of course, they could still be lawfully used by others, authorized by the king. There were wardens for each stone, stewards, and all of those. But the most relevant bit is this gem. It must, however, be noted, with regard to the narrative of The Lord of the Rings, that over and above such deputed authority, even hereditary, any heir of Elendil, and that is a recognized sort of descendant, someone occupying the throne or lordship in Numenor, any of the realms by virtue of this, descent, had the right to use any of the Palantir, and Aragorn thus claimed the right to take the Orthong stone into his possession, since it was now, for the time being, without owner or warden, and also because he was de jure the rightful king of both Gondor and Arnor, and could, if he willed, for just cause, withdraw all previous grants to himself.
Right. So it's very much a legal thing, in terms of his ownership of the stone. Not only does he have the right to use it, they're actually his stones.
It's a binding magical contract.
Yeah. Thank you for saving me from what was undoubtedly going to go down as a very bad euphemism. I'm going to go ahead before it gets any worse, before we talk too much about Aragorn's stones. If you could read a little bit about what he showed Sauron in that conversation.
Absolutely. He drew a deep breath. It was a bitter struggle, and the weariness is slow to pass. I spoke no word to him, and in the end, I wrenched the stone to my will. That alone he will find hard to endure. And he beheld me. Yes, Master Gimli, he saw me, but in other guise than you see me here. If that will aid him, then I have done ill. But I do not think so. To know that I lived and walked the earth was a blow to his heart, I deem, for he knew it not till now. The eyes in Orthanc did not see through the armor of Théoden, but Sauron has not forgotten Isildur and the sword of Elendil. Now in the very hour of his great designs, the heir of Isildur and the sword are revealed, for I showed the blade reforged to him. He is not so mighty yet that he is above fear. Nay, doubt ever gnaws him. But he wields great dominion none the less, said Gimli, and now he will strike more swiftly. The hasty stroke goes oft astray, said Aragorn. We must press our enemy, and no longer wait upon him for the move. See, my friends, When I had mastered the stone, I learned many things. A grave peril I saw, coming unlooked for upon Gondor from the south, that will draw off great strength from the defense of Minas Tirith. If it is not countered swiftly, I deem that the city will be lost ere 10 days be gone. Then lost it must be, said Gimli, for what help is there to send thither, and how could it come there in time? I have no help to send. Therefore, I must go myself, said Aragorn. But there is only one way through the mountains that will bring me to the coastlands before all is lost. That is the paths of the dead.
Oh, man. We keep coming back to the paths of the dead.
He ends so many or so many sentences or paragraphs with it that you just, or starts it with the paths of the dead. And it just becomes this point that is hammered home that, we don't really hear mention of it before the now. And, I've heard some folks say, it's just a Deus Ex Machina, but no, it's very much this journey that Aragorn needs to go on to become who he is now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And part of the rest of that journey is what he does here with Sauron in the Palantir, right? And Aragorn, speaking of that encounter, first he talks about the nature of the experience. It is a bitter, bitter struggle that has left him just completely exhausted.
And I love how specific he gets. No words spoken, and then a successful recovery of the stone.
He wrenched it. I love that phrase.
Bending to, I love the idea that Tolkien, that this world has the idea that you can bend things and people to your will just by thought alone. It's not quite a magic system, but it's quite the way to sort of organize your world.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, Aragorn obviously is less powerful than Sauron. I mean, he's a mortal man versus a Maya. But he is the legal and rightful owner of the stone. And he has tremendous will and strength of character. So he is able, with much effort, to wrench the stone back away from the control of Sauron. Because, it had been tied to him before, obviously.
Right.
And that is quite a loss to Sauron. As Aragorn puts it, it's going to be hard for him to endure. And because now he doesn't have that ability to communicate with Saruman. A whole slew of intelligence that was once passing through that stone is now gone. Mm-hmm. But yes, Aragorn tells Gimli, Sauron did see me, even though I looked a little different to him.
I love that the guises or the raiments that people put on in the various systems of Tolkien's sort of the magic of the world. Because Aragorn doesn't think, though, that this is a bad thing. Because after all, for Sauron, basically just to even know that Isildur's heir lives, that's a huge blow.
That is a huge blow. A totally unexpected blow, too.
Yeah, because, Saruman did not recognize Aragorn in Rohirric armor outside of Isengard. Sauron, there's no way he forgets Narsil or Isildur.
Oh, no.
There's no chance.
Yeah, and now that he's nearing the starting point of his great plans, Sauron is all of a sudden faced with the fact that the heir of Isildur lives and the shards of Narsil have been reforged. Oh, my. Right? I mean, he sees the blade reforged as Aragorn has shown it to him. That's bold move.
It is, and it's a huge moment because it is one of the things that I think maybe almost humanizes Sauron in a way that we haven't seen before, and it speaks to the doubt that is sort of eating at his mind, because despite how strong he is not above fear.
No, he's not. Even Morgoth, I remember, if you think about when Fingolfin challenged him, right? He called him Craven.
Yeah.
And it was only because he didn't want to lose face in front of his minions that he went forth. He was afraid too.
That's one of those wonderful moments that, in this otherworldly fantasy, not only do the main characters feel human, but we have that moment of, oh, right, there's some politics, there's some face to be saved here. You've got to be able to say, all right, I am the big, strong, tough guy.
That's right.
I got this. And no.
I'm a big, bad Vala. And this is just a child of Iluvatar. I can come out and smash this guy, which, of course, sadly he does. I mean, but Sauron's not quite to the level of Morgoth, but he's also not able to reach out through the stone and grab Aragorn either. So, he's very much afraid. Gimli's retort, though, I love it. He's basically saying, you done poked the bear. I mean, this guy, whether he's afraid or not, he still has a ton of power. There's nobody on Arda that has as much power as Sauron right now. And now he's angry. He's motivated to lash out.
Yeah, I love this little bit because Aragorn responds with this wonderful little piece of wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
The hasty stroke goes oft astray. Because I love that line so much, I've thought about that. It reminds me of like a boxing match where the guy who's really hyped and just wants to get it, he's not settling in for 12 rounds. He wants to swing once for the knockout. And he's very much like Treebeard.
Yeah.
Hasty. Don't be hasty.
Don't be hasty.
Maybe Sauron could take some advice from Treebeard here.
Don't be so hasty, because that stroke is going to go astray. And we'll see that it does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Aragorn basically says, all right, it is time for us to now make the first move, basically.
That's right.
Like Pippin wanted in the last chapter.
Right. That's true.
And then he makes it clear that the threat that's forced his hand on this, he sees this sort of grave peril coming from the south.
That's right. And of course, this is a reference to the news that Baragon shared with Pippin in the last chapter. And I'll just refresh your memory. But if you would know what I think set the beacons ablaze, it was the news that came that eve out of Lebendin. There is a great fleet drawing near to the mouths of Anduin, manned by the corsairs of Umbar in the south. They have long ceased to fear the might of Gondor, and they have allied them with the enemy, and now make a heavy stroke in his cause. For this attack will draw off much of the help that we looked to have. Now, news of that threat didn't reach Minas Tirith until March 7th. That's tomorrow, because, of course, today in the storyline is March 6th.
Yeah. And he then makes, and I love this, he makes a sort of estimation, this sort of tactical battle plan based on the threat. If it isn't countered in some way very quickly, Minas Tirith is going to fall by, it was 10 days. So that would be March 16th.
Correct.
Yeah. And then Gimli, doing some math in his head as well, says that he thinks that it's obvious, what help can we send? We can't get there.
If it's going to fall in 10 days, well, then it's going to fall, because there's nothing we can do in that time frame.
City is doomed.
Yeah. Well, this is where Aragorn springs his news to Legolas and Gimli, the news he's already told Théoden. I can't send help, so I have to be the help. And in order to get there that quickly, well, there's only one way to get to the coast from here that fast, and it's to take the paths of the dead.
And if you have a map handy, or you want to pull one up, look at it right now. He is absolutely right. There are no passes through the mountain, but no time to go all the way around Minas Tirith and head to those southern areas.
No, not a chance. But speaking of the paths, right? Gimli echoes what he's heard. It's a fell name, and it's not one the Rohirrim seem to like, for good reason. And he asks a really good question. If it is the paths of the dead, can people who aren't dead use it, right? It's a valid question. If I'm living, I'm going to want to know, does that mean that I'm going to have to be dead in order to take these paths? Do I have to die before I can take them? And by the way, even if we can get there in this time frame that you're talking about to counter this force, well, how are we going to be able to counter it with a total force of 35 people, right? We got the 30 Rangers, the sons of Elrond, Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn. How can 35, even amazing warriors like this, be enough to defeat whatever this plan of Sauron's may be?
So, Alan, to answer your first question here, an obscure Lord of the Rings fact, no one has used the road since the Rohirrim came. That was Third Age in the year 2510, so it has been more than 500 years. But the heir of Isildur can use it.
I'm going to go ahead then and we'll find out exactly why the heir of Isildur can use it. Aragorn says, "Listen, this is the word that the sons of Elrond bring to me from their father in Rivendell, wisest in lore. Bid Aragorn remember the words of the seer and the paths of the dead." "And what may be the words of the seer?" said Legolas. "Thus spoke Malbeth the Seer in the days of Arvedui, last king at Fornost," said Aragorn. "Over the land there lies a long shadow, westward reaching wings of darkness. The tower trembles to the tombs of kings. Doom approaches, the dead awaken. For the hour is come for the oath breakers. At the stone of Erech they shall stand again, and hear there a horn in the hills ringing. Whose shall the horn be? Who shall call them from the gray twilight, the forgotten people? The heir of him to whom the oath they swore. From the north shall he come, need shall drive him. He shall pass the door to the paths of the dead." "Dark ways, doubtless," said Gimli. but no darker than these staves are to me. If you would understand them better, then I bid you come with me, said Aragorn. For that way I now shall take. But I do not go gladly. Only need drives me. Therefore, only of your free will would I have you come. For you will find both toil and great fear, and maybe worse. And we'll stop there because we can't read the whole thing, but man, I want to.
It's such a good part.
Isn't it?
And maybe worse.
And maybe worse.
Love that.
It's already going to be really, really hard work, toil, and great fear. Terrifying, paralyzing fear. Oh, and that might be the best part.
I love Aragorn's when he starts to explain all of this as to why that he, the heir of Isildur, it's like, oh yeah, paralyzing fear. It's fine. I am the heir of Isildur. I can use this road. I've got this.
That's right.
He starts with this message that Elladan and Elrohir brought to him from Elrond that specifically included the words of the seer.
Which leads Legolas to ask the frankly painfully obvious question, so what are the words of the seer? And that sets the stage then for Aragorn to give us the details.
Well, first, these are the words of Malbeth the Seer during the reign of Arvedui, the last king of the Northern Realm.
And you know what? I want to get into those words. I'm super excited to look at the actual verse, but I want us to do a quick sidebar on Malbeth first. First, a little word nerdery on his name, because that's relevant here. Mal is a prefix meaning gold, as in Malorn, or the fields of Cormallen, according to the appendix in the Silmarillion. While Beth is a lenited form of peth with a P, and it means word. There are not a lot of other examples, but there are two. There's Athrabeth, which is conversation or interchange of words. And then there's also one of the phrases that Gandalf uses when he's trying to open the doors of Moria. He says, Lashto Beth Lammen, which means hear the word of my tongue. So Beth or Peth is word. So golden word, or maybe voice of gold, something along those lines. And again, it just implies the worth and value of what Malbeth is saying.
And we don't have a precise dates of any of his things like birth or death, but we do know that the years that his two known prophecies, though, were made, 1864 and 1975. That's in the Lord of the Rings, not 1975. Our
with the wide lapels and the bell-bottom pants? No.
Yeah, back when you were in your, 40s, 50s?
Oh, wow, man.
You didn't think I was letting that one slide.
No, I remember 1975.
Yeah, of course you do.
I was in second grade, Don. Come on, man.
Were you wearing bell-bottom pants?
No.
And doing the disco? No.
No, but my mom did buy corduroy pants from Sears, and I hated them.
I would pay
corduroy.
To see those pictures.
Nobody should have to wear corduroy willingly.
I would pay good money to see those pictures.
I would pay good money to make sure they don't exist. All right.
All right, back to this,
please.
seer. Given that, likely he probably wasn't a teenager when he made his first prophecy. That's not how Tolkien works. So it's clear he was very strong Númenorian, has had that good Númenorian ancestry, and was probably at least well over 100.
Well over 100. Even if he was 20 when he made his first one, he'd have been 131 at the next one, because 111 years passed between those two prophecies.
Yep. And of course, don't forget, it's the second prophecy that we're going to be talking about in a minute, but we can spend some time on the first one just to kind of show how accurate Malbeth's words are.
I think that's a good idea. So the first one goes back to when Arafant was the king of Arthedain. Now that's what was left of the Northern Kingdom by that point. Malbeth had some words to share when Arafant's son was born in Third Age 1864. Arvedui you shall call him, for he will be the last in Arthedain. Though a choice will come to the Dunedain, and if they take the one that seems less hopeful, then your son will change his name and become king of a great realm. If not, then much sorrow and many lives of men shall pass until the Dunedain arise and are united again. So what happened?
He literally named his son last king.
And
and sure enough, when Gondor is left without a king, when Andahare and his sons died in battle, the Wainriders, this is Third Age 1944, Arvedui claims the kingship, and after all, he was an heir to Isildur, but he was also married to Andahare's daughter, Thiriel, who should have been the one to succeed her father. This was the choice that Gondor had, basically. If they took the one that seemed less hopeful, Arvedui would have changed his name and ruled the Great Realm, the reunited realms of Gondor and Arnor. That did not happen.
Mm-hmm.
They chose Arnor, and we all know what happened to him.
Yeah, that is true.
Mhm.
Arnor was a little headstrong and a little naive. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to go off to single combat with the Witch King. I'm sure he's going to be fair about it.
What could possibly go wrong
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, no, that whole thing, and that's worth diving into, folks. If you've never really looked into the backstory of that, it's so much fun to read. Gondor, there's a series of notes that go back and forth between Gondor and Arvedui, and it's basically like, well, we never reckoned it through this line, and we don't do this whole woman succeeds her father, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of callbacks to Númenórean history, and really there is some peace. I mean, Eärnur, when he does become king, kind of throws an olive branch Arvedui's way and does end up trying to send help. It doesn't get there in time, and Arvedui dies. And that, of course, is what ends up leading to Eärnur facing off against the Witch King. Witch King retreats, and then much, much later, Eärnur gets the challenge and then goes and gets, disappeared. So back to the story. So soon after that, in Third Age 1974, Fornost fell to the Witch King, and Arvedui died in the Ice Bay of Foreshell in Third Age 1975. So as Malbeth had said, much sorrow and many lives of men would pass before the Dunedain would arise and be united once more under, of course, Aragorn.
So now that we have sort of officially established that this Malbeth is a bona fide prophet, right?
Yeah.
We can now get back to Aragorn quoting this second prophecy, the one that he made after the fall of Fornost and shortly before the death of Arvedui.
Right, just a year before his death.
Yeah.
So let's break this prophecy down into chunks. The first chunk is the threat that faces Gondor, right? We get the long shadow over the land reaching to the west, which of course means the threat is coming from the east. The tower appears to be referring to the Tower of Ecthelion, certainly because the Tombs of Kings is a reference to the Rath Dinan, the silent street in Minas Tirith, where the tombs of the kings were.
Yeah. The second part, though, is about the dead themselves. Their
Right.
hour has come. They are the Oathbreakers.
Mhm.
They'll stand at the Stone of Erech and hear a ringing horn.
Mhm.
They will be called and also referred to as the Forgotten People.
That's right. Whereas the third part of the prophecy is about the one who is going to call them, right? And who is that guy? Well, he's the heir of him to whom the oath they swore. And that person is going to come from the north in a time of need and will pass onto the paths of the dead.
A quick bit about the Stone of Erech and a quick tip of the hat to Hammond and Skull for pointing this out. First, I think we've mentioned this before, but the name is described in Tolkien's Unfinished Index as being a pre-Númenórean name of a hill on the Morthond Vale, which was said the Great Black Stone of Isildur, a stone he described in letter 297 as the Covenant Stone.
Can I just say, I like how you said we've mentioned this before. You're owning the show, Don. I love it because, of course, it was actually, I think, in the part when Sean Gunner and I were talking about it. But I like that. That works for me.
I am Sean Gunner.
And you are also Corey Olsen.
I am.
And you are also Matt from Nerd of the Rings. And,
We are Groot. Anyway, we.
I thought you were going to say we are Legion. All right.
Well, you know.
You're that too. All right. Well, going back then to letter 297, we get a reference there to what Tolkien called echoes of real life places. This is kind of interesting because of the name Erech. He writes that the name Erech fits the style of the predominantly Sindarin nomenclature of Gondor, or it would not have been used, as it would do historically, even if it was, as it is now convenient to suppose, actually a pre-Númenórean name of long forgotten meaning. Since naturally, as one interested in antiquity and notably in the history of languages and writing, I knew and had read a good deal about Mesopotamia. I must have known Erech, the name of that most ancient city. Nonetheless, at the time of writing this particular section, he says, and devising a legend to provide for the separation of Aragorn from Gandalf and his disappearance and unexpected return, I was probably more influenced by the important element in Elvish, E-R, which translates to one, single, or alone. Tolkien goes on to say, in any case, the fact that Erech is a famous name is of no importance to the Lord of the Rings, and no connections in my mind or intention between Mesopotamia and the Númenóreans or their predecessors can be deduced. I thought that was really interesting.
You ever just accidentally stumble upon genius?
Yeah.
The way Tolkien does? Just...
No, I stumble upon genius because I read Tolkien every day in preparation for this podcast. I don't stumble upon like my own genius.
This man is just running rings around like cartographers and lore masters and ancient Mesopotamian scholars, and just referring to this ancient city of Erech or Uruk, which is the ancient Sumerian civilization, a city that some people believe had as many as, ready for this, 40,000 residents in 3100 BC, making it the largest urban area in the world.
3100 BC, and they had 40,000 people living in the city.
Just imagine
my
that.
goodness.
Just imagine that.
Wow. That is something.
The man's a genius, I tell you.
Yep. Well, before we get back to the text, can we just talk about how freaking awesome the alliteration is in the prophecy, right? We talked about that alliteration earlier. You knew I wasn't going to let that go.
No, I knew you weren't letting that one slide.
Here, horn, hills, who's who, land, lies, long, westward, wings. I love it. Just read it aloud, folks. Read it aloud. Catch that alliteration. Let it just ride. It's great stuff.
Cannot recommend it enough. Meanwhile, Gimli is just like confused. Like the prophecy is as dark, meaning mysterious, of course, as the path might be.
Yeah, yeah.
Aragorn is like, well, look, if you would like to solve this mystery with me, Scooby, come with me. Because that's where oh God, now I'm just picturing Shaggy and Scooby in the paths of the dead.
Aragorn and Gimli as Shaggy and Scooby. Ruby Rex.
Like zoinks, Gim, we gotta go to the Stone of Erech, dude.
Oh man, that's great stuff. I love that. That is just awesome.
Put that on a t-shirt somewhere. Yeah. Aragorn, of course, is like, hey, come with me. Let's solve the mystery together, because that's where I am going. But of course, he says he is not going gladly. He is only going out of need, which of course is the part of the prophecy.
Exactly. I like that. Now, he does warn them, right? Toil, that's the part that I read at the very end. Great fear, and that's just the highlights. So come only if you choose. And then in the part we didn't read, we see that Gimli chooses to go, and to go to whatever end the path leads. He's brave here. Legolas is the only one who doesn't really care about the fear, because he isn't afraid of the dead. So he's going to go. And then, of course, Gimli has the comment about, they're forgotten people. I hope they haven't forgotten how to fight. Right? Aragorn's like, I guess we'll see.
We shall see. Can you imagine they get there and we're like, yeah, we're pacifists now, man.
That's right. Yeah, we've kind of changed our viewpoint on all this. But, we're happy to sit down with Sauron and talk to him and see if we can convince him.
Compromise, maybe. He rules everything west.
That side of the river.
Side,
I'm sure we can work something out. Sure. Let's go ahead and, we're mediators now.
Yeah.
All right. Thankfully, that's not the case.
Thank God.
All right. Well, why don't you go ahead and finish up the reading for tonight? Give us some more details on the oath, and let's begin to make our way to the paths of the dead.
Gladly. But the oath that they broke was to fight against Sauron, and they must fight, therefore, if they are to fulfill it. For at Erech there stands yet a black stone that was brought, it was said, from Numenor by Isildur, and it was set upon a hill, and upon it the king of the mountains swore allegiance to him in the beginning of the realm of Gondor. But when Sauron returned and grew in might again, Isildur summoned the men of the mountains to fulfill their oath, and they would not, for they had worshipped Sauron in the dark years. Then Isildur said to the king, Thou shalt be the last king, and if the west prove mightier than thy black master, this curse I lay upon thee and thy folk, to rest never until your oath is fulfilled, for this war will last through years uncounted, and you shall be summoned once again ere the end. And they fled before the wrath of Isildur, and did not dare to go forth to war on Sauron's part, and they hid themselves in secret places in the mountains, and had no dealings with other men, but slowly dwindled in the barren hills, and the terror of the sleepless dead lies about the hill of Erech, and all places where that people lingered. But that way I must go, since there are none living to help me. He stood up. Come, he said, and drew his sword, and it flashed in the twilit halls of the burg. To the stone of Erech I seek the paths of the dead. Come with me who will. Legolas and Gimli made no answer, but they rose and followed Aragorn from the hall. On the green there waited, still and silent, the hooded rangers. Legolas and Gimli mounted. Aragorn sprang upon Rohirrim. Then Halbarad lifted a great horn, and the blast of it echoed in Helm's Deep. And with that they leapt away, riding down the coombe like thunder, while all the men that were left on dyke or burg stared in amaze.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Oh. Can I just say, before we even discuss this, why, after reading this passage, I still think that Rings of Power should have made Halbrand the future king of the dead? That would have been so much better than having be Sauron.
I still think, spoilers, by the way.
Well, okay, spoilers. That's true.
Yeah,
but by the time this episode comes out, folks, I apologize, but come on. I mean, this is going to be, November 20th when this comes out. The show's been done for 5 weeks by that point.
Plus, it's kind of obvious to me, at least.
That's true. I mean, it's the whole reason why I didn't think it was him, because I thought it was too obvious, right? It can't be Halbrand. That's so obvious. It's going to be somebody else. It's going to be
I have my own theories.
It's going to be Sauron or something, But so I kept thinking, he'll just be the king of the dead.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking that Theo is going to be.
Oh, like the Witch King or one of the...
Yeah. He's already, close enough to meeting Isildur that they have a potential to form a friendship. Yeah.
Well, he'll be a Nazgul, but he shouldn't be the Witch King, because the Witch King, as we know, is actually a Black Númenórean, correct?
No. So the Black Númenórean is the mouth of Sauron.
That's right.
Yeah.
But at least three of the Nazgul are Númenóreans.
Correct.
Númenórean race.
Correct.
And we know Camul isn't one of them because he's an Easterling. That's the only one that's named. But anyway, we digress. Let's go and actually look at the text instead of talk about Rings of Power. Sorry about that, folks. I know there's some of you out there who are just like, would you stop talking about that stupid show? That's why we have another podcast. All right. So Aragorn gives this sort of top-level summary first. Well, they're oath breakers because they'd sworn to fight against Sauron. And so in order to fulfill their oath, they have to still fight. But then he gives this really cool, detailed version of the story.
Yeah, the stone brought by Isildur from Númenor, the allegiance sworn by the king of the mountain, and the failure of the men to basically fulfill their oath because they had worshipped Sauron previously. Oops.
Yeah. We may not worship him anymore, but, we still kind of think the guy's all right. Yeah, a bad spot to be in. And then we get Isildur's curse. If the West wins, you are not going to rest until your oath is fulfilled. And that's going to be a very, very long time, because this war is going to last a very long time. You will be summoned again. So you will get a chance to fulfill your oath, and you will have to fulfill it if you want rest. So the men, I don't know, they just run away. They don't want anything to do with this at all. They're not going to fight for Isildur. They're not going to fight for Sauron either. They're just going to hide.
Yeah. Oh, it's, at the end of the day, probably the best thing they could have done instead of actually fighting for Sauron, right?
Fighting for Sauron would have been a very bad idea.
Very bad idea. Yeah, they'd all be dead. And I often wonder when I read this portion, did Isildur think it was going to be in his lifetime? That, or his children's or his descendants?
Yeah, how far down the line? Did he think it was going to be that many years away? Yeah.
3,000.
The entirety of the Third Age?
Yeah, 3,000 plus years at some point. And, we get this very real sense that this area is very haunted. It's the terror of the sleepless dead. But that's where, Aragorn is like, I have to go there because the living, they can't help me.
No. You talk about it being haunted and the terror of the sleepless dead. This is not the cheerful ghosts, right? Mm-mm. This is not the ghosts from Scooby-Doo like we were talking about earlier. This is not.
It was really Old Man Jenkins the whole time.
That's right. This isn't the Grim Grinning Ghosts Come Out to Socialize from the Haunted Mansion ride, right? We're not going to get the funny little ghost with the funny hat sitting in your car.
No.
This is a terrifying place. Terrifying. And again, these are people who worship Sauron and then they turn back on their word. So these aren't great people to begin with. Let's just be clear. So, of course, it must be just terrifying. But let's talk a little about the oath, because it's been a while since we talked about it on the show. A long time. In fact, it was episode 100, which is about 4 years ago now.
Wow.
Sean and I answered a mailbag question. It was timed to be around Halloween. So it was late October, 4 years ago, about the nature of the dead men and about the oath and the curse. And it's the last part of our answer, really, that I want to revisit for those who might not have listened back then or who haven't listened in, let's say, 4 years.
Sean started out by pointing out that we know, of course, that men's Thear, or spirit, go beyond the circles of the world after they die, in accordance with Ilúvatar's design. And we know that no power in Arda, so not Sauron, not Mandos, and certainly not another man, would change what Ilúvatar willed.
Right.
And he went on to argue that since they are clearly dead and that they are men, we don't even have the excuse of saying that they refused the summons of Mandos. So that must
like
mean
elves, yeah.
Exactly. So that must mean that Isildur's curse has some supernatural force, but it can't be his own doing. It has to be that his curse is granted force by some sort of divine power. Knowing that the Valar can't change what happens to men after they die, I am left concluding that Ilúvatar must be the one to have heard Isildur's curse and granted it. That may seem shocking. After all, this is Ilúvatar allowing this to happen to his children, but maybe he does it because he knows they are going to be needed someday. I think Ilúvatar is playing the long game and allowing Isildur to have his curse, knowing that these dead men will be instruments in the eucatastrophic moment for Aragorn thousands of years later.
That was awesome. Thank you for bringing Sean Marchese back on the show with that extended quote. I think it's actually the first time we've quoted him at length since he left. It was really interesting. But I thought then and think now that his answer was excellent. You can see that logic going through. Well, they're clearly dead and they're men, so it's not about refusing the summons. Isildur's curse has some force, but he doesn't have that authority. The Valar don't have that authority. It has to be Ilúvatar. I really like that. I mean, Isildur's curse on its own would not have the power to deny the gift of men to even people like the Oathbreakers. I mean, that mortality is what men are intended to have from Ilúvatar himself, so only Ilúvatar would be able to make that happen.
Right.
Now, that leads me to want to discuss the why behind this. Now, back then I talked about the nature and power of oaths in Middle-earth, right? They are quite real and very powerful. They always bind the one who swears the oath. I mean, one look at Fëanor and his sons confirms that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
My point then, and it's the same now, is it seems that all oaths in Middle-earth, whether explicitly or otherwise, call upon Ilúvatar for enforcement. I mean, Fëanor's oath specifically does. But I think all oaths have that assumption that it is only Ilúvatar who can enforce it, only Ilúvatar who can hold people accountable for that. So when the men of Dunharrow fail to fulfill their oath, they literally called down Ilúvatar's punishment on themselves for breaking that oath in accordance with what Isildur had said. At the time, I even speculated as to whether Isildur's curse itself was necessary. I'm not sure about this, but it's an interesting question. Would they have possibly become like wights, sort of like the Barrow Wights, clearly undead spirits of men, even if Isildur had not cursed them simply because they are oath breakers? Right? Would there have been punishment for that? Now, look, there's no support for that. And I'm not saying that conclusively. It's just an interesting question to throw out there. But how much of that curse was necessary since it's Ilúvatar himself who made it happen? I don't know.
Forgive me if I'm stealing your own thunder, but it definitely feels like a Spabimmy moment.
Ooh.
Sure. Did Isildur need to curse them? No, but Isildur was the instrument for Ilúvatar to basically say, all right, cool. Well, I curse you.
Right.
And even if I don't, and maybe Isildur knows this, maybe he doesn't, but
yeah,
I'm going to curse you because you refuse to answer the call. And whatever divine powers that Isildur is aware of at the time says, I'm going to let them take care of it because I know that you, being an oathbreaker, to Tolkien, and it's as you said, take one look at Fëanor. Oath breaking is one of the most horrible things that you can do in Tolkien's world. That is just the ultimate betrayal.
It's very much the ninth circle. I mean, Dante is the same way, right? I mean, that's the whole idea. Those who go back on their oaths, who break their vows, those are the ones who end up in the ninth circle.
Yeah.
And clearly Tolkien has that same sort of concept where that is the worst thing you can do. So it's an interesting idea. I like that, Isildur was involved, that he was sort of the instrument, perhaps. I like that speculation very much. Yeah. Fascinating stuff. But the power of curses and oaths, I mean, don't make an oath that you don't mean.
Just don't. Don't. All right. Speculation aside, we get back to the text. All right. Aragorn draws his sword and boldly says, basically, where he is going. Legolas, Gimli. I love this. They don't say anything.
Yeah.
They follow him.
That's right.
It's one of those like silently marching off to war with your commander in front of you. They meet the Rangers outside, who are obviously just ready to go at the drop of a hat.
Exactly. And that's exactly what they do. They get on their horses. Halbarad blows a great horn and they bolt, right? They take off quickly because they're not going to the mountain paths and taking a stealthy way. They're going to go out by the plains. And as they bolt off, everyone stares in amaze, which I love that turn of phrase. It's just amazement. It's just an archaic way of saying that, but it's so lovely.
And it's interesting. Hammond and Skull tell us that in the original plan for this book, this was basically where the story of Aragorn ended. The rest of the story was going to be told in flashback. Fortunately, as Hammond and Skull say, he decided to extend the narrative to cover the journey through the paths of the dead and the summoning of the dead at the Stone of Erech, making this a standalone chapter.
Yeah, now that's interesting too, right? I mean, in that previous version of the plan, the rest of this chapter contained what is now the Muster of Rohan. Now, this version does at least allow the final part of the story of Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas, and the army of the dead to still be told retrospectively. So it maintains the surprise of Aragorn's arrival at the Pelennor Fields, but it does allow more of the story to be told directly. And I'm very grateful for that because I like getting the story directly. There's a couple of times like this where we get them told in flashbacks. You know, the Isengard bit is the other one.
The Isengard bit, I've always, because of course, I, being young, I didn't read the books first. I saw the movies. And
so many people came to the books through the films. Absolutely.
Watching that happen in real time, I'm like, this is amazing. And then going back and I'm like, I can't wait to get to the...
It doesn't quite happen like that.
I see. No.
Yeah.
Well, it almost to a point, it felt kind of anticlimactic. I'm like,
I mean, was it night fell on Isengard is the end of that chapter. And you're like, wait a minute. But what?
Where's the rest of it?
It's just a different way of telling the story. But I am glad that at least in this chapter, he decided to go ahead and extend the narrative just a little bit further. And we'll get to that, of course, next week.
Great call.
Then Nob and Bob lifted a great horn, and the blast of it echoed in the pony, while all the Breelanders stared in amaze. What does Barliman have in the mailbag for us tonight, Don?
Well, Alan, as we heard Aragorn talk about looking into the Palantir, we have this question from Justin R. Based on a recent discussion of how the Palantiri present things that happen without context in a way that Sauron uses to deceive Denethor, is it fair to say that the Palantiri are like modern movie and television show trailers?
Oh.
Alan has bemoaned the deceiving, out-of-context nature of the Rings of Power trailers, and this strikes me as rather similar to how Sauron describes the use of Palantiri. Alan, what say you?
Oh, man, Justin, you're going to get me in trouble, man. Comparing Sauron's use of the Palantiri to Amazon's use of a TV trailer. I'm not a fan of the analogy, but I guess we could answer the question. In a way, I think yes, but to be fair, it's not just the Rings of Power trailers. I mean, I've said this before, trailers are cut in such a way as to entice the viewer into watching the show or the movie. They're not meant to be an accurate representation of the film or show. Oftentimes, they trick you. They're cut in a way that is trying to make us come to a particular conclusion or make particular assumptions. I'm not getting out of this analogy.
No.
I'm in trouble. I mean, look, Sauron very much used the Palantiri to show things that are true or accurate, like factually accurate, but in a way that lack context so as to trick Denethor. But the end goals are very different. I think that's where the analogy kind of falls apart a little bit, right? I mean, Sauron's trying to get Denethor to abandon all hope. Trailers, they just want us to spend a few bucks to watch something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Don, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm reminded of an old professor I had in college who I took a class called Statistics in the News. I'm a former journalist.
Right.
And he was very clear to sort of hammer home the point that you need to look at, what the context of the statistics says. Something like, well, yes, 4 in 10, 40% is too high. Well, sure, 40% is too high, but if you only interviewed 10 people, you're not going to get the full context. It's like those polls during, political season and how they all try and meet this sort of like wider audience, but in reality you're only interviewing 1,500 to 5,000 people most times. It's not really an accurate representation. So I always think of the Palantiri as like the political
poll. I like that. I like that. Yeah,
they're not exactly accurate because they lack the context, or they're only showing you,
they're incomplete.
Exactly. They're incomplete.
Yeah.
They're telling you the facts, but not necessarily the context behind that. Sure, Sauron has a huge army.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily everything. Maybe he's going to make a mistake. He doesn't know about Aragorn. He doesn't know about all of the hope that is still out there.
That's an interesting,
kind of looking back into something that I think from the Council of Elrond chapter that bodes well here.
Mm-hmm.
Sauron can't imagine a world where someone destroys the ring.
Right.
Gandalf says something to the effect of that we should destroy the ring and not replace him would not cross his mind.
No.
I'm paraphrasing, of course, but
it's a pretty close paraphrase, though. I think you're absolutely dead on. Yeah.
I've read this book a lot.
You too,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah. It is one of those moments where, almost like Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars, right? There's no world where Palpatine doesn't come out on top, because he understands that if Luke kills Vader, we'll just take Luke as his Padawan. If Vader kills Luke, it's great. If Vader kills the Emperor, then Vader is going to become the new Sith Lord and Luke is going to join him. But none of that happens. And in that same way, Sauron is missing a lot of the context. Simultaneously, Denethor is also not getting a lot of the context of everything that is happening in the world. It's so much bigger than just two people or two, kindred staring at a stone.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Oh,
I like the political poll thing. That works well for me.
Yeah.
Anything that could get me out of trouble with Amazon in that, actually. I mean, deceptive, yes, but only trying to get $5 out of you. Something like that, right? Not trying to get you to lose all hope, enter here.
I don't think the goal of whoever cut that trailer was, I want to make people really upset.
No. They want us to make wild guesses. Oh, the meteor man must be Sauron. Oh, those people must be, whatever.
Listen, as someone who worked very actively during the Rings of Power to make sure that those theories were known to everybody, like the 5 meteors theory, that was my friend Tori and I loved it, though. All right, sorry, we're getting way off track. Do we have time for one more?
I think so. Ethan F. has some questions about Ar-Pharazôn that also tie into the dead men of Dun Harrow. And again, spoiler alert for Rings of Power, assuming that they go there. He says, we know that Ar-Pharazôn and his armies are trapped under the hills until the end of the world. Presumably they are alive. Is that true, do you think? If so, how? Are they in the same boat as the dead men of Dun Harrow, mostly dead but still hanging around, or is there another cause? Also, Ethan asks, in what condition are the dead men of Dun Harrow? Are their Hroar, that's their bodies, gone while their Fear, or souls, are stuck on Earth, or is there some other mechanism? Now, he asks another question about Ar-Pharazôn, but we'll leave that to another time. We want to focus on the dead men of Dun Harrow connection.
Okay, so we can take a look at what basically Tolkien says about Ar-Pharazôn and his men, and I'll read something towards the end of the Akallabeth, and yes, there will be spoilers for the end of the Akallabeth, but
the book's been around for a while, so yeah.
This is from the same paragraph that Tolkien talks about the destruction of Númenor, and we read, quote, "But Ar-Pharazôn the king and the mortal warriors that had set foot upon the land of Aman were buried under falling hills. There, it is said, that they lie imprisoned in the caves of the forgotten until the last battle and the day of doom."
That's a long wait.
This is one of those moments that Tolkien utilizes the some say, so like whether or not it is true or not true is kind of an interpretation. Personally,
you can't get out of it though. What's your opinion? Are they lying imprisoned? What's the deal?
It is right up Tolkien's alley to trap a group of evil men underneath a giant hill in, you don't give a cool name like the Caves of the Forgotten or the Last
that's true.
Battle.
That's a pretty cool name.
You add in so many proper nouns, so many capitalized words.
The Last Battle, the Day of Doom. Yeah.
It's like how can you be like, well, yeah, I guess none of that was actually true. Like, no, of course it is. Of course
okay, I'm with you.
It's Tolkien. Whenever I always imagine when Tolkien says some say, it's always some is me. I am the author. And it is legend, big air quotes here, legend. But yeah, of course it's true.
I tend to go, and we always have on the PPP, we've tended to assume the it is said means that it is. Like that's our, unless there's some evidence to suggest to the contrary, we buy the "it is said" as truth. And here, I think, you said it's very much appropriate that they would be, buried under these hills. These evil men would be, stuck in the caves of the forgotten. I think it's also a very fitting punishment for a mortal seeking immortality to be given immortality in a really terrible, terrible set of circumstances. And that's why I think they are actually very much still alive, imprisoned, as Tolkien put it, until the end of Arda. Now, look, the mechanisms and how only Iluvatar knows for sure, but it's clear, absolutely clear, that he would be directly and personally involved, not just because this is connected with his reshaping of the world, that the hills fell when maybe the rest of the world was changed, but because he's the only one with the authority and power to deny the gift of men, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
Now, that's why this is similar to the Dead Men of Dun Harrow. It took Iluvatar's intervention, but I really think that's actually where the similarity ends. Ar-Pharazôn and his men, I believe, are very much still alive physically. I think it's the absolutely perfect punishment. It's the hall of ironic punishments for Ar-Pharazôn and his men to be given immortality. Whereas the text makes it very clear, and this answers his other question about the condition of the Dead Men of Dun Harrow. Their condition is very much the condition of spirits or ghosts, right? They are Fear without Hroar. Later on, Legolas says, "I see shapes of men and of horses, and pale banners like shreds of cloud and spears like winter thickets on a misty night." I mean, the use of that sort of cloud and mist imagery really, really suggests these aren't physical bodies. There's something wispy and ghostly. And then we even get that moment when Aragorn summons them, right? And the voice answers them. We'll hear this in next week's episode. He says, "Oathbreakers, why have ye come?" And the voice is described as a voice was heard out of the night that answered him as if from far away.
And keep in mind, Legolas refers to them as both shadows, but also shades.
Oh, yeah, that's conclusive, if you ask me, yeah.
Absolutely. Saying, quote, "I feared not the shadows of men," and thinking to himself, quote, "Even the shades of men are obedient to his will." So, very spooky ghosts.
I think we've all known, all along that they're ghosts. I think that is the big distinction, because Ar-Pharazôn and his men are physically alive. Sustained somehow. Again, that's where we just have to throw up our hands and say, "I have no idea."
Would it perhaps be an instrument of perhaps a god that needs to prove that these things will? I'm getting ahead of myself.
It'd be fun to get into the metaphysical stuff with you. Maybe we'll have to do that with a good question in the bag if we can find another one for next week. But
I'm ready
for
it.
now, that is all we have time for. That does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But be sure to join us next week when Aragorn and Éowyn star in the all-new romantic comedy, You're Going Where?
Not entirely sure that is the right genre here.
No,
but of
probably
course,
not.
This is your humor, Alan, and this is the Prancing Pony Podcast, so you never know.
That's right.
Folks, Alan and I do want to just say thank you to all of the members of Team Prancing Pony Podcast, editor Jordan Rennells, Barleyman Becca Davis, and our team of research assistants, a social media manager, Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator, Katie McKenna, graphic artist, Megan Collins, and website guru, Phil Dean.
Now, speaking of the website, please be sure to visit us there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
You'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony Podcast is, first and foremost, a podcast about the books. So if you are interested in a book that we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. The Prancing Pony Podcast gets a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Círdan's contributions here. I'm going to start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Mario in Utah, B in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, and Joe in Washington.
There's also Erwin from the Netherlands, Dylan in Australia, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Jim in Maryland, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, June in Ireland, Joshua in Massachusetts, James in Florida, Lucy in Texas, Connor in North Carolina, Keith in Alabama, Carson in Oklahoma, and Vivian in California. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed, thank you.
And make sure you don't miss an episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe now through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, your stares in amaze to Barliman at the prancingponypodcast.com. Yeah, if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. You can visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
I'm just going to send you an email that's just going to say stares in amaze on it. Or just a picture of my face staring in amazement.
Just a pair of eyeballs. Just.
Also, please be sure to still email questions to Barliman. Even though Barliman's been a lot more reliable lately, there are still a lot of emails to sort through. We'll try to get to you as soon as we are able.
Indeed. As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time,
I am young Han Solo, and that was old Han Solo. Thank you all so much for joining us on the Prancing Pony Podcast.